First contact and false assumptions. The Zenari Empire had spent 3,000 years establishing dominance across 7 star systems. Their technological supremacy was unquestioned, their military force unmatched, and their scientific achievements celebrated throughout known space. When their deep space probes first detected the small blue planet in Sector 427b, they dismissed it as another unremarkable world inhabited by primitive beings. Commander Vexer stood on the bridge of the Zenari exploration vessel Starweaver, studying the preliminary scans of the planet called Earth. The readings showed a civilization that had barely achieved orbital capabilities, with satellites scattered in low orbit and a modest space station that seemed more experimental than functional. The commander's crystalline form shifted colors from purple to blue, a sign of mild curiosity. Primitive manufacturing signals detected across the planetary surface, reported Science Officer Telex. Industrial output appears consistent with early atomic age development. The initial assessment seemed straightforward. Earth's population of 8 billion beings showed signs of organized society, but their technology appeared generations behind Zenari standards. Their cities lacked energy shields, their transport systems relied on combustion engines, and their weapons systems were chemical-based rather than plasma-powered. Yet something nagged at the edges of Vexer's consciousness. The sheer volume of industrial activity was unusual for a planet at this development stage. Factories dotted every continent, production facilities ran continuously, and the global supply chain showed a complexity that seemed excessive. When the Zenari made first contact, humanity greeted them with enthusiasm rather than fear. Trade negotiations began almost immediately, with Earth offering manufactured goods in exchange for basic technological knowledge. The Zenari delegation, led by Ambassador Crixel, found themselves dealing with representatives who seemed eager to learn but carefully controlled what information they shared. The first shipments from Earth arrived at Zenari trading posts 6 months later. The cargo manifests listed construction equipment, power tools, communication devices, and industrial machinery. Each item was sturdy, practical, and surprisingly well-engineered for a supposedly primitive species. Zenari engineers examined the goods with professional detachment, noting the emphasis on durability over elegance. Interesting design philosophy, mused Chief Engineer Zorax, examining what humans called a multi-tool. Every component can be replaced or repaired with basic equipment. The modularity is extensive. As trade continued, more Zenari officials visited Earth. They toured factories, observed assembly lines, and studied human industrial practices. What they saw challenged their initial assumptions. Human factories weren't just producing civilian goods, they were designed with remarkable flexibility. A facility manufacturing agricultural equipment could be retooled for military production within hours. Components used in civilian vehicles shared identical specifications with military hardware. Lieutenant Vila, a junior intelligence officer, filed the first warning report. Human industrial capacity exceeds all projections for their technological level, she wrote. Their manufacturing systems show signs of deliberate design for rapid conversion between civilian and military production. The report was dismissed by senior command. A common trait among developing species, they responded. The ability to produce does not equate to the ability to innovate. But the evidence continued to mount. Human factories operated with minimal central oversight, each facility capable of independent decision-making. Their supply chains were redundant, with multiple sources for every critical component. Even small workshops possessed 3D printers and automated machinery that could produce complex parts on demand. Engineer Zorax couldn't shake his growing unease. During a visit to what humans called a tech startup, he watched as young engineers rapidly prototyped devices that would have taken Zenari facilities months to develop. The humans moved with a speed and adaptability that defied conventional understanding. They don't just manufacture, he reported to his superiors. They iterate. Every design is built to be modified, upgraded, or repurposed. Their entire industrial base operates on principles of continuous adaptation. The Zenari leadership remained unconvinced. Earth's weapons were still projectile-based, their spacecraft primitive, their energy systems inefficient by galactic standards. How could such a species pose any real concern? Then came the incident at Mining Station Theta 9. A human cargo vessel, supposedly carrying industrial equipment, responded to a distress call from a Zenari mining operation under attack by pirates. Within minutes, the cargo vessel had deployed hidden weapon systems, launching swarms of combat drones that overwhelmed the attackers with coordinated precision. The drones weren't sophisticated by Zenari standards, but there were hundreds of them, each one expendable, each one manufactured using components that could be found in any human workshop. The implication sent shockwaves through Zenari military command. Inspector Kryn was assigned to investigate Earth's true capabilities. His team of analysts began connecting dots that others had missed. Human civilian satellites could be rapidly converted to military use. Their communication networks were hardened against electromagnetic attacks. Their power grid was decentralized, with thousands of independent generation facilities. "We've been looking at this wrong," Kryn reported. "Earth isn't a planet with factories. Earth is a factory. Every aspect of their civilization is designed for production, adaptation, and survival." The report reached the highest levels of Zenari government. For the first time, they began to question their assumptions about human technology. Yes, individual human devices were less advanced, but their ability to produce them in massive quantities, to modify them rapidly, and to deploy them efficiently created a different kind of technological advantage. Ambassador Crixold requested an urgent meeting with Earth's representatives. He needed answers about humanity's true capabilities, about the purpose behind their industrial design. The humans smiled politely and offered to discuss expanded trade opportunities. Meanwhile, Zenari surveillance satellites detected something troubling. In remote areas across Earth, massive underground facilities were coming online. These weren't civilian factories. They were something else entirely, something that had been built in secret while the galaxy's attention was focused on the visible infrastructure. Commander Vexer reviewed the latest intelligence with growing concern. "They've been preparing," he said quietly. "Not for war with us specifically, but for any threat. Their entire civilization is built on the principle of rapid response to danger." The Zenari Empire had encountered warrior species before, races that gloried in combat and built their societies around military might. But humanity was different. They had built something far more dangerous, a civilization that could transform itself from peaceful trader to military powerhouse in the time it took most species to mobilize their forces. As the first part of this story concludes, the Zenari Empire stood at a crossroads. They had discovered something unprecedented in their long history of galactic expansion. A species that had turned their entire planet into a weapon factory, not through advanced technology, but through brilliant organization, adaptability, and the simple recognition that survival required the ability to produce, modify, and deploy solutions faster than any threat could emerge. The question now wasn't whether humanity posed a threat, but what the Zenari Empire would do with this knowledge. Would they attempt to suppress this adaptable species, or would they recognize the futility of trying to contain a civilization that had made flexibility and resilience its core principles? The answer would shape the future of both species and perhaps the entire galaxy. The unveiling truth. The Zenari High Council convened an emergency session, their crystalline forms pulsing with agitation as they reviewed the mounting evidence of humanity's true capabilities. Intelligence Director Zefix presented holographic displays showing Earth's industrial networks, each revelation more disturbing than the last. "We've identified over 12,000 facilities capable of weapons production," Zefix reported, his form flickering between orange and red. "But that's just the surface level. Our deep scans reveal something far more concerning." The hologram shifted to show Earth's underground infrastructure. Vast networks of tunnels-connected facilities across continents, creating redundant supply lines invisible from orbit. Hidden factories lay dormant beneath seemingly innocent structures, schools, hospitals, even residential areas. They've turned their entire civilization into a distributed manufacturing system, Zefix continued. Every home contains tools capable of producing components. Every vehicle is designed with military applications in mind. Every citizen has been trained in basic engineering principles. Senior analyst Mirik stepped forward, her tentacles manipulating the holographic display. We've been analyzing their design philosophy. Human technology isn't primitive. It's deliberately simplified for mass production. They've optimized for quantity and adaptability rather than individual performance. She displayed a comparison between Zenari and human weapons. A Zenari plasma rifle required rare elements and specialized manufacturing facilities. A human assault rifle could be produced in any machine shop using common materials. While less powerful individually, humans could produce thousands in the time it took to manufacture a single Zenari weapon. But surely, interrupted Council Elder Vorix, quantity cannot overcome quality. Our shields can withstand primitive projectile weapons. Myrix's form dimmed slightly. That's what we thought. Until we analyzed their ammunition development, they've created specialized rounds for every known shield frequency. Their weapons may be simple, but their ammunition is remarkably sophisticated. The revelation sent ripples of concern through the council chamber. The Zenari had assumed human weapons were crude due to their mechanical nature. They hadn't considered that simplicity in design allowed for complexity in application. Field Agent Tila, recently returned from Earth, requested permission to speak. I've observed their manufacturing facilities firsthand. They don't just produce weapons, they produce the machines that produce weapons. Their industrial base is self-replicating. She displayed footage from a human factory. Automated systems assembled more automated systems, each generation improving upon the last. The exponential growth potential was staggering. We also discovered something else, Tila continued. Human civilians participate in what they call maker culture. Millions of individuals maintain personal workshops, share designs online, and continuously improve upon existing technology. It's decentralized innovation on a scale we've never encountered. The implications were clear. Even if the Zenari destroyed every major factory on Earth, humanity could rebuild their industrial base from countless smaller facilities. Their resilience wasn't just organizational, it was cultural. Commander Vexer, who had led the first contact mission, presented his tactical analysis. We've wargamed various scenarios. In conventional warfare, our technological advantage gives us superiority. But human doctrine doesn't rely on conventional warfare. He displayed simulation results. In every scenario where the Zenari attempted to establish control over Earth, human resistance adapted faster than occupation forces could respond. Guerrilla manufacturing cells emerged within days, producing weapons tailored to exploit specific weaknesses in Zenari technology. They don't need to match our technology, Vexer explained. They just need to produce enough counters to make occupation unsustainable. Their entire strategy revolves around making conquest more expensive than any possible benefit. The council chamber fell silent as members absorbed this information. The Zenari Empire had built its power on technological superiority and centralized control. They had encountered a species that had taken the opposite approach, technological simplicity and radical decentralization. Economic advisor Kesix presented trade data. Human exports have increased by 300% since first contact. But we've noticed something disturbing. They're not just selling finished products. They're selling manufacturing capability. The hologram showed human industrial equipment being shipped to dozens of worlds. Each shipment included not just machines, but training programs, maintenance manuals, and replacement part specifications. Humanity wasn't just trading. They were proliferating their industrial philosophy across the galaxy. They're creating a network of allied production, Kesix warned. Every world that adopts human manufacturing methods becomes part of their distributed industrial base. They're building redundancy on a galactic scale. Security Chief Draxus outlined the strategic implications. If we move against Earth, we won't just face human resistance. We'll face resistance from every world that has adopted their manufacturing systems. They're creating a defense network without formal alliances or military pacts. The Council debated their options. Military action seemed increasingly risky. Economic sanctions might backfire, pushing humanity to accelerate their industrial expansion. Diplomatic isolation was impossible given humanity's growing trade relationships. Ambassador Crixel, who had negotiated the original trade agreements, offered a different perspective. Perhaps we're approaching this wrong. Humanity hasn't shown aggression toward us. Their preparations seem defensive rather than offensive. Defensive preparations on this scale constitute a threat, countered Admiral Zorith. They're building the capability to wage war on a galactic scale. No, Crixel disagreed. They're building the capability to survive a war on a galactic scale. There's a crucial difference. The debate continued for hours. Meanwhile, Zenari intelligence assets on Earth reported accelerating activity. Human factories were increasing production, but not of weapons. They were producing more factories. The self-replicating industrial base was expanding at an exponential rate. Deep space monitors detected something else. Human vessels, previously limited to their own solar system, were beginning to appear in neighboring star systems. These weren't military ships. They were industrial platforms, automated factory ships designed to process asteroids and establish manufacturing bases. They're not content with making Earth a factory, observed Science Director Yevix. They're turning their entire solar system into a production facility. And now they're expanding beyond it. The Zenari faced an unprecedented situation. Every civilization they had encountered followed a similar pattern: develop advanced technology, build military forces, expand territorially. Humanity had chosen a different path. They had made production itself their primary technology, adaptability their greatest weapon, and resilience their defining characteristic. As the Council session neared its end, a priority message arrived from the Galactic Monitoring Station. They had detected massive energy signatures from Earth's moon. Investigation revealed the largest surprise yet. The moon itself had been converted into a manufacturing facility. Beneath its cratered surface lay automated factories spanning hundreds of kilometers. "How long has this been operational?" demanded Elder Vorix. "Our best estimates suggest since before first contact," replied the monitoring officer. "They were preparing for galactic interaction long before we arrived." The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Humanity hadn't been surprised by first contact. They had been ready for it. Their entire civilization had been shaped by the assumption that they weren't alone in the universe, and that not all contact would be friendly. The Zenari High Council faced a sobering realization. They hadn't discovered a primitive species slowly developing space technology. They had encountered a species that had spent generations preparing for exactly this moment. The moment when they would need to prove their right to exist in a hostile galaxy. As news of these discoveries spread through the Empire, a new question emerged. How do you contain a species that has turned adaptation itself into a weapon? How do you defeat an enemy that grows stronger with every attempt to suppress it? The answer, as the Zenari would soon learn, was that you don't. You either learn to coexist or risk awakening a sleeping giant whose true power lay not in advanced weapons or superior technology, but in the simple, unstoppable ability to produce, adapt, and overcome. The confrontation and awakening. The Zenari Empire's response came swiftly. Emergency legislation passed through the High Council, imposing strict trade restrictions on Earth. They limited exports of advanced materials, restricted technology transfers, and implemented mandatory inspections for all cargo leaving human space. High Chancellor Nexus addressed the Empire. "We cannot allow this unprecedented militarization to continue unchecked. These restrictions will contain human expansion while we assess the threat." But humanity's response defied all expectations. Within hours of the announcement, Earth's global networks activated emergency protocols. Factories that had been producing consumer goods switched to alternative materials. Engineers who had been designing entertainment systems began developing substitutes for restricted technologies. The entire planet pivoted with a coordination that astounded Zenari observers. Director of Human Affairs, Professor Chen, addressed the United Earth Council. They think they can strangle our growth. They don't understand. Adversity is our catalyst. Underground facilities, previously dormant, came online. These weren't military bases, but research centers dedicated to material science. Within weeks, humanity had developed synthetic alternatives to most restricted substances. What the Zenari had intended as a crippling blow became a springboard for innovation. Ambassador Crixel watched in disbelief as human productivity actually increased under sanctions. They're not just adapting, he reported to the High Council. They're evolving. Every restriction we impose accelerates their technological development. The turning point came when a Krellian raiding fleet attacked a human mining operation in the Proxima system. The Zenari, bound by treaty to protect trade routes, prepared to intervene. Before their fleet could arrive, they witnessed humanity's true defensive capabilities. The mining station, seemingly defenseless, suddenly deployed hidden weapons platforms. But these weren't conventional defenses. The station released clouds of microscopic drones, each no larger than a grain of sand, each carrying a tiny explosive charge. The swarm enveloped the Krellian ships, infiltrating their systems through the smallest openings. Within minutes, the entire raiding fleet was disabled. Not destroyed. Disabled. The Krellians were left alive but helpless, their ships intact but inoperable. It was a display of precision and restraint that shocked military observers across the galaxy. Admiral Zorith analyzed the engagement. They could have annihilated the fleet. Instead, they chose to demonstrate capability without causing casualties. This wasn't just defense, it was a message. The message was clear. Humanity possessed weapons beyond anyone's imagination, but chose to use them with restraint. They had the power to destroy but preferred to disable. They had the capability for war but selected deterrence. As news of the Proxima incident spread, the galactic community's perception shifted. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive began reassessing. Worlds that had supported Zenari restrictions started questioning the wisdom of antagonizing Earth. The final revelation came from an unexpected source. A Zenari archaeological team, investigating ancient ruins on a distant world, discovered records of a previous galactic civilization. The records spoke of a species that had faced extinction and survived by transforming their entire society into a self-sustaining production system. The description matched humanity perfectly. Professor Elena Kovac, Earth's leading xenorchaeologist, confirmed the connection. Our ancestors faced annihilation once before. We survived by becoming something new, not warriors, not conquerors, but creators. We learned that the ultimate defense is the ability to adapt faster than any threat can evolve. The Zenari High Council convened for what would be their final emergency session regarding the human question. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity wasn't a threat because they sought conquest. They were a threat because they had made themselves unconquerable. Elder Vorix, long the most vocal advocate for restrictions, surprised everyone with his conclusion. We have been fighting the wrong battle. We cannot defeat an enemy that grows stronger with every challenge. We cannot contain a species that thrives on limitation. We have only one viable option. The council chamber fell silent. Partnership, Vorix continued. We must invite humanity into the galactic community as equals. Their strength can become our strength. Their adaptability can benefit all species. The vote was unanimous. Ambassador Crixel delivered the historic message to Earth. The Zenari Empire formally resigns all restrictions and invites humanity to join the Galactic Council as a full member. We recognize your unique capabilities and welcome your contribution to our shared future. Earth's response came not from a political leader, but from a factory worker in Detroit. We never wanted to be your enemy. We just wanted to be left alone to build things. Now let's build something together. Within a year, human manufacturing methods had spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had struggled with resource scarcity learned to adapt and improvise. Worlds facing environmental collapse discovered sustainable production techniques. The galactic economy transformed as efficiency and adaptability replaced brute force and rigid specialization. The Zenari Empire itself underwent profound changes. Their centralized systems gradually gave way to more flexible, distributed networks. Their military doctrine evolved from overwhelming force to adaptive response. They learned, as humanity had long ago, that true strength lay not in superior weapons, but in superior adaptability. In the grand archives of galactic history, scholars would record this period as the Great Awakening, the moment when the galaxy discovered that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't a weapon or a technology, but the simple ability to change, adapt, and overcome. Years later, when asked about Earth's role in reshaping galactic civilization, Ambassador Crixel would simply smile and say, "They didn't conquer us with weapons. They conquered us with workshops. They didn't defeat us in battle. They defeated us in factories, and in doing so, they showed us all a better way to survive." The dark secret of Earth was never that it was a weapon factory. The secret was that humanity had discovered something far more powerful than weapons: the infinite potential of cooperative adaptation. They had turned their entire civilization into a machine for solving problems, and in doing so, had solved the greatest problem of all: how to survive in a hostile universe not through domination, but through endless creativity and resilience. As human manufacturing stations spread across the galaxy, as species after species adopted their methods, as the very nature of galactic civilization transformed, one truth became clear: Earth hadn't just survived first contact. They had changed the meaning of power itself. And in the vast expanse of space, where countless civilizations rose and fell, humanity's legacy would endure not as conquerors or warriors, but as the species that taught the galaxy that the greatest weapon of all was the ability to make new weapons unnecessary.